The final moments of Gene Lipscomb were anything but peaceful. His untimely death from a heroin overdose sent shockwaves through the sports world, leaving fans and loved ones mourning. On the night of May 10th, 1963, Gene Lipscomb stepped out onto the streets of Baltimore, Maryland. The larger-than-life defensive lineman had a reputation for dominating the field, but off it, he was navigating a darker and more destructive path. That night, he wasn't alone. His companion Tim Black later recounted how the two spent hours partying with women, laughing, drinking, and living the fast-paced lifestyle Lipscomb had grown accustomed to. The night stretched into the early hours of the morning, with the clock ticking past 3 a.m. when the mood took a deadly turn. Black, who admitted to being Lipscomb's heroin supplier, said that the player decided to use the drug that night, something he had reportedly been doing multiple times a week for 6 months. Lipscomb's decision to dabble in heroin was shocking to many, given his well-known fear of needles. Yet according to Black, it had become a hidden routine. As the heroin entered Lipscomb's system, something went terribly wrong. Black described a horrifying scene where the towering athlete, who once seemed invincible, began to drool and lose consciousness. Panic must have set in at that moment as Black tried to wake him up, shaking him and calling his name. But Gene wasn't responding. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Black rushed him to Lutheran Hospital. Tragically, by the time they arrived, it was too late. Lipscomb was pronounced dead just before 8 a.m. The autopsy later revealed the cause, a heroin overdose. Fresh needle marks marred his skin, and the report also noted a fatty liver, a condition often associated with prolonged substance abuse. For a man who seemed larger than life, it was a painfully human and heartbreaking end. The news of his death sent shockwaves through the sports world and beyond. How could someone like Big Daddy, a player who once seemed untouchable, a hero to so many, fall victim to something so devastating? Friends and fans alike struggled to make sense of it. Many refused to believe he had willingly used heroin, clinging to the idea that his death might have been a homicide, perhaps tied to a robbery. After all, his fear of needles was well known, and the circumstances around his overdose seemed uncharacteristic to those who knew him. In Baltimore, thousands of people gathered to pay their respects during the public viewing of his body. The line stretched for blocks, with mourners standing under the night sky even as the clock neared 10 p.m., the scheduled closing time. It was a testament to the profound impact Lipscomb had on his community. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a larger-than-life figure who had inspired countless people with his talent and personality. His funeral, held in Detroit, was equally moving. Over 1,000 mourners packed into the service, including teammates, friends, and loved ones who came to say goodbye. Tears flowed freely as stories of his kindness, humor, and fierce determination were shared. Despite the struggles that marked the final moments of his life, Gene Lipscomb was remembered for the joy he brought to those around him and the unforgettable legacy he left behind on the football field. He was laid to rest at Lincoln Park Memorial Cemetery, leaving behind a story of triumph, tragedy, and unanswered questions. Lipscomb's death was a sobering reminder of how addiction can strike even those who seem the strongest. Lipscomb lived a life that most people could only dream of, filled with incredible highs and moments that cemented his legacy as one of the most fascinating figures in sports history. Yet his journey wasn't without struggles and missteps, which makes his story all the more compelling. Lipscomb's NFL career began in 1953 when the Los Angeles Rams signed him as an undrafted free agent. For many players, especially one with no college football experience, this would have been an uphill battle. But Lipscomb had something that couldn't be taught: raw, almost superhuman physical talent. Standing at 6 feet 6 inches and weighing over 300 pounds, he was a mountain of a man with the speed and agility of someone half his size. Initially playing at defensive end, he was shifted to defensive tackle the following year, where his true potential began to shine. Despite his undeniable gifts, life with the Rams wasn't smooth sailing for Lipscomb. It wasn't his performance on the field that caused problems, but rather his life off of it. Buddy Young, a running back for the Baltimore Colts, who later became his friend, described Lipscomb's early years as chaotic. He painted a picture of a young man caught up in a whirlwind of late-night partying, drinking, and what many would call a fast crowd. Lipscomb's upbringing, an orphan from Detroit who grew up dirt poor, meant he had little guidance and was navigating fame and fortune on his own. He didn't have the structure of a college program to teach him discipline, and many of his Rams teammates didn't take the time to help him adjust. In September 1956, the Rams decided they had had enough. They placed him on waivers, and for just $100, the Baltimore Colts picked him up, a decision that turned out to be a stroke of luck for the team. The Colts weren't even the first in line to claim him. The San Francisco 49ers had initially wanted Lipscomb, but missed the deadline to secure him due to a telegram mix-up. The Colts, on the other hand, acted quickly by making their claim over the phone, bringing Lipscomb to Baltimore. Once he joined the Colts, something seemed to click for Lipscomb. In 1957, he led the team in tackles with an astonishing 137, a remarkable feat for a defensive lineman. By 1958 and 1959, he was named to the Pro Bowl and became a key figure in the Colts' back-to-back NFL championships. Teaming up with future Hall of Famers like Gino Marchetti and Art Donovan, Lipscomb was part of one of the most dominant defensive lines in football history. But what truly set Lipscomb apart wasn't just his size or strength. It was his speed and agility, qualities that were unheard of for a man his size during that era. Buddy Young once described him as by far the fastest big man of his time. Lipscomb wasn't just a defensive tackle, he was a game changer who could chase plays from sideline to sideline. Opposing offensive linemen were often forced to resort to holding him just to slow him down. Lipscomb had a straightforward solution to that. If a player starts holding, I smack my hand flat against the ear hole of his helmet, he once said. When he complains about dirty playing, I tell him to stop holding and I'll stop slapping. That's what I call working out a problem. In 1961, Lipscomb was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he took his game to new heights. Under the Steelers' coaching, he was encouraged to attack upfield as a pass rusher, and the results were phenomenal. In his first season with the team, Lipscomb recorded 17.5 sacks, a number that, though retroactively counted, showcased just how dominant he was. His teammate Dick Hoke later reflected on how Lipscomb changed the game, calling him the first big guy I ever saw who was fast and quick. He could go sideline to sideline, and other big guys just couldn't do that. Lipscomb's final game in the NFL was the 1963 Pro Bowl, where he was fittingly named lineman of the game. It was a bittersweet moment as it marked the end of an incredible career for a man who had redefined what it meant to be a defensive lineman. But football wasn't the only stage where Lipscomb shined. During the NFL offseasons in the late 1950s and early 60s, he stepped into the world of professional wrestling. Using monikers Gene Lipscomb and Big Daddy Lipscomb, he performed in promotions across the United States and Canada. Whether it was in California, Hawaii, or Montreal, Lipscomb's larger-than-life persona made him a natural fit for the wrestling ring. Fans flocked to see the NFL star take on opponents, adding yet another layer to his legend. Gene Lipscomb's life was a mix of triumph and tragedy. On the field, he was a trailblazer, a prototype for the modern defensive lineman. Off the field, he struggled with demons that ultimately cut his life short. Yet even in death, his legacy lives on as a reminder to both the incredible heights and harsh realities that come with fame. Well, that brings us to the end of today's video. Make sure to subscribe to NFL Icons for more such videos, and while you're at it, hit that like button too.